January, February, March, and there are uprisings in various countries there. The most recent would be Libya and Syria. Started out with Tunisia, then Egypt. And what were you watching? Was it
in Japan? I didn't really watch TV, but I listened to radio back at home. So of course I just got like interviews and telephone calls from people from Egypt or Tunisia.
Was it easy for journalists to get in those countries?
They were using local people as journalists.
Exactly,
right?
yes. So you've got user-generated content, which was a major feature of the uprisings in the Middle East. And to give an example more closer to home, do you remember the, what was it called, the Akihabara Satsujike?
Yeah.
The Akihabara massacre. What year was that? Was that 2009? 2008? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. What was very, very unusual about that, very, very interesting, was that all the major Japanese papers, they published extras, which you call gogai. And now, the extra has basically disappeared in the West. It's seen as something that belongs to another era long in the past. But Japanese papers still like them. And what you saw there was an intersection of old media and multimedia, because does anybody remember seeing any of those extras? No? Well, extras always have photographs. Where did those photographs come from? Can you guess? From the newspaper's own staffs? No, where did they come from?
Citizens.
Right, people who were there at the scene had taken photographs with their cell phones, had shot video with their cell phones, and they were approached by these big mainstream Japanese news organizations who bought that, or just asked for it and were given. So for the first time, maybe not the first time, but that was, to me, was a very, very illustrative example of how media is becoming democratized, and multimedia is part of that. So here are some of the main features. Instantaneity, very fast. You get news that's seconds old. Audience participation. News production is no longer a one-way street. It's a two-way electronic conversation, with viewers and readers contributing opinions on journalists' stories and providing information that adds to the stories. And I'm sure you've noticed, I don't know if this is so common with Japanese newspapers, but with English language newspapers, you very often see the journalist's email address at the end of the story. Does that happen with Japanese? Not so much, no. I think, to be honest, Japanese newspapers are moving much more cautiously, you know, on this. It reminds me, you know, I used to work for the Yomiuri, and the boss there is Watanabe Tsuneo, or Nabetsune is his nickname. And he gave a very rare news conference after the Yomiuri published a very interesting book on war responsibility. And Richard Lloyd Parry of the Times was at that press conference, as was I, and he asked Watanabe, what do you think, how is the internet going to affect you know, the future of Japanese newspapers? And Nabetsune said, oh, it's a fad. You know, it'll be, so it's a passing fashion. So this is the head of Japan's most powerful media empire. He's not sold on the idea of the internet. Anyway, user empowerment. Thanks to the internet, viewers, listeners, and readers can now decide when and where to watch TV and video, listen to radio and podcasts, and read text. In 2004, the then head of AP, the Associated Press, Tom Curley, said, "The users are deciding what the point of their engagement will be. What application, what device, what time, what place." And this has led to a blurring of the lines separating TV, radio, and computers. Think of the Middle East, user-generated content. Mainstream news organizations are increasingly using photographs, video, and first-person accounts sent by non-journalists at the scene of breaking news events. Now, I can remember about maybe 10 years ago when CNN was starting to try to develop a relationship with its viewers. But in those days, it tended to be a very clumsy, boring thing. What they would do, they'd just put on the screen some brief comments made by viewers, which tended to be not very interesting, and it was more of an annoyance. But if you were a news editor, what do you think the risks would be of using content that's not generated by your own staff, by your writers and your photographers and your camera people?
Libel and things like that.
People instead of having an own employee.
Yeah, I suppose so. You think of, any
How about issues of ownership?
Ownership is normally, you know, if you go to the website of any news organization, it says that they will, you know, keep copyright in most cases. Something even more basic than that. Well, it's an issue of trust, really. I mean, how can you be 100% sure that this photograph, which the user claims is showing something, actually is genuine? You can't. I suppose there's maybe one case in 1,000 where you'll get something that is actually fake or not what it presumes to be. However, I think the advantage of having content sent in by users far outweighs the chance that there, you know, one thing that's sent in 1,000 will not be genuine.
This was the Osama picture where you said, like, this is.
What was that?
Didn't they submit some pictures about that Osama?
The
where
death
it was
pictures.
Just a.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear about that. That sounds.
I think a user just photo edited the picture and said, like, he could look like this if he were
Right.
dead. So put some beard on a corpse or something like that who looked like him. And
Some of the
bigger
media
newspapers.
organizations ran
Right,
it.
well, that's a good example. The last one would be richness and depth of content, which you mentioned. In cyberspace, there's no limit to the number of column inches or pictures a story can have. Hyperlinks allow users to explore the background to stories in a depth that's impossible with mainstream media. And interactive graphics make complicated stories and topics comprehensible. So it's plain then the central advantage that multimedia reporting has over traditional print and broadcast reporting is that it allows a story to be told more fully. That is, in greater detail and a more nuanced manner, more comprehensibly, more entertainingly, and more interestingly than it would be possible if the same story were told through any single medium. At IIJNM, students learn how to deliver news in any and all media, the skills needed to be a so-called converged journalist. They learn solid reporting and writing for print, online, and broadcast media. Convergent journalism is all about deciding how to maximize the effectiveness of a news story by reporting it via the most suitable media formats. Those formats may be the web, broadcast, radio, or a newspaper magazine, or most likely all of the above combined. So my students take courses from all areas, print, multimedia, television, radio, and they learn to combine the individual media skills to present a single story through multimedia. They create the news website, the soft copy, themselves, doing everything from gathering and writing content. That's when they go to Bangalore twice a week, reporting, and they publish the work using major web publishing software tools. So in the world of so-called convergent media, in which the 3 C's of computing, communications, and content are combined and function symbiotically, journalism can utilize the strong points of the various media forms to maximize their informative capabilities. Now, I say journalism and not journalists for a reason. After bloggers emerged as a power, as players in the media industry, a fierce debate arose over whether they can be called journalists. But this question is sterile in my opinion. A better question than is he a journalist or is she a journalist is this journalism? So let's take a look at the particular strengths of each medium and see how they can be applied to create a multimedia story on a topic close to my heart. Now, I live about 30 kilometers from central Bangalore, and the road which I have to travel along 2 or 3 times a week is called the Mysore Road, and it's in a truly dreadful condition. It's like about 6 lanes wide, and very often the traffic is backed up for an hour or 2 hours even. The road's in terrible condition. It's got holes in it. When it rains, it floods. It's an absolute nightmare. So what I'm planning to do with my multimedia students next year is have them work in a group to produce a story on that problem. So, using the various features of multimedia, can you think of how you might, what would be a good way to do that story for multimedia?
I could make a video about
Right.
jam and
Okay, what exactly would you video?
maybe like a small cut of how everybody stands in their car and shout to each other because it's not moving or when it's going to be flooded.
The flooding.
Certainly, yes.
Or when a car falls into one of the holes.
Exactly, yeah, okay, that's some good video. How would you use still photography? How would you feel if you were stuck in a traffic jam for like 2 hours?
Angry.
Angry, so you might have an angry face. Now that would make a good still photograph, wouldn't it? And also I was thinking about, well, just examples of potholes in the road, how deep they are. Using text, how would you use text to benefit that story? Now this congestion in that road, it occurs for a reason. What's the reason?